Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Accent Training Podcast. My name is Pat. I'm your personal American accent coach. And today, I want to talk to you about how I use intonation to hold your attention and how you can also use intonation to hold the attention of your audience. Because using intonation is a big skill. It's a communication skill, and it's made of many small skills, or speech habits. I can confidently tell you that you can learn to use American intonation because you can learn to apply each of these small habits. I can teach you to peak up your voice, to bring attention to certain words. You can learn to make unimportant words shorter and quieter. You can learn to stretch your vowel sounds out. And you can learn when to do each of these things so that your sound holds your listener's attention most effectively without sounding awkward. You know, in a way that adds value to your message. So today I want you to take away some value from this talk. I'm not going to try to cover every intonational pattern all at once. That just overloads your brain with information, and in the end, you will learn nothing. What I'm going to do today is bring your attention to one simple pattern and help you reevaluate your own speaking and help you begin forward on your goal in a more sustainable way. And to define that goal, of course, to put some words to it, we are working towards holding the attention of an American audience. That's what I want you to do. Hold their attention. So here's how we're going to go about this. We're going to talk about the 3 common difficulties of intonation. Chances are you fall into one of these 3 patterns when you're speaking English. And as we break down each of these common difficulties, we're going to follow one theme, the American pattern, and we're going to compare and contrast how the American pattern sounds against the patterns of other languages and other cultures. So here are the most common difficulties with intonation. You're either using too much intonation, as in your voice is getting too strong too often. You're not using enough intonation, as in your voice is too weak and too flat all of the time. Or you're bringing in some intonational sound from your native language that does not translate into English. So today we're going to cover all 3 of these difficulties that make your intonation sound awkward to American ears. I'll also tell you a few stories about how I've seen people overcome this, and I'm going to share a free gift with you folks today. That's right. I have an accent training tool, a gift that I've created that I want to share with you. Now, I say I've created this, but actually my lovely wife, Estefania, created this, but it was my idea. I'm just not someone who's good with Excel, and she is a wizard with Excel. So I left my idea in her capable hands, and she made a great tool which you can find in the description. I'll explain how to use this tool as we wrap things up today. It's going to have a significant impact on how well you develop intonational habits. Well, getting into the first difficulty. Too much intonation. This happens with Spanish speakers, Italian speakers, probably Portuguese speakers too. It happens with people from the Caribbean, countries like Jamaica or Grenada. It happens with Vietnamese. And what it is raising your voice and your tone in a way that Americans perceive as impatient or angry. When I look back on my own life, I can say that this has happened to me. I used to work at Campbell's Soup, like tomato soup and mushroom soup. I used to work at Campbell's Soup, and there was someone who worked on my team from Grenada. She was definitely the most experienced person on the team. And she would speak in a way that was very direct and harsh sounding to Canadian ears. For example, she'd say, "Allô," to get your attention. "Allô." To a Canadian, it sounds a little bit aggressive. And then she'd say, "What you want to do with this?" And to me, that feels like she's giving a command. But really, she's just saying, "Hey, what do you want to do with this?" In her own culture, that's how they communicate it. They speak the same language, they speak English, but they use intonation that sounds aggressive to Americans. And so one day, I matched her intonation, and I spoke back to her in an aggressive manner as well. She asked me something like, "What are these? What are these?" And I said, "What do they look like?" You know, I was just speaking to her in the same aggressive manner that she was speaking to me. However, as I said, looking back, she wasn't trying to be aggressive at all. This is just how she spoke in her culture. And so she got upset about it. She went and, spoke to our manager, and then we got pulled into a brief little meeting to hash it out. And at the end of it, we shook hands. I told her, "Hey, I respect you as a senior worker, and I'd like to continue learning from you. Let's put this behind us." She agreed, and we went about our day peacefully. If you've ever had a situation like this where you said something to an American and they gave you an aggressive response that you didn't expect, it's probably because your intonation was off. If you want to fix that, here's what you do. You stress one word per thought. One word per thought that you are expressing with voice. You see, the typical tone and rhythm of spoken English is That rise and fall of voice comes from putting intonation on one word in the sentence while having the others maintain a low to medium pitch. You see, we keep the less important words lower and quicker in pitch, and we only rise our voice on the main word of the sentence. Even how I did in that last sentence right there. We only rise our voice on the main word in the sentence. Now, the main word in the sentence can change depending on the context. For example, if I say, "I needed water," I needed water, versus, "I needed water," I needed water. Both are correct. There isn't one magic word that you have to stress when you say those words. Both are correct. It just depends on the context. I needed water stresses the necessity. It's like I was dying of thirst. I hadn't drank anything. I had a headache. I was dizzy. I needed water. Versus, I needed water. Not Coca-Cola. Water. I needed water. I needed water. Same words, but we stress the words differently based on the context. If we say, "I needed water," I needed water, and we stress all three of the words, people are going to think that you sound angry. Like what happened with me with my former colleague from Grenada. So like I said, if you're a Spanish speaker, an Italian speaker, Portuguese, Vietnamese, if you speak Arabic, or even if you're from English-speaking countries like Nigeria or Jamaica, Grenada, Kenya, where a lot of people do grow up speaking English, they just speak with the patterns of their own culture, their own country. If you've ever run into a situation where an American has seemed upset and you couldn't quite understand why, your emphasis may have been the culprit. So what can you do to fix that? Work on mirroring people's emphasis. Watch YouTube videos. Watch just 5 seconds of a YouTube video. Someone just saying one quick phrase. And then repeat the words of the phrase. Don't try to get every detail perfect. You're not going to get every single sound perfect on your first attempt. But just try to match the emphasis. Try to match the emphasis. In fact, even record yourself doing this exercise. Use your phone, use your computer, whatever you got. Record yourself doing it and listen and ask yourself, does my voice match theirs? If you find that a lot of your words are communicated stronger than the speaker that you're listening to, then try to communicate it with lower emphasis, only emphasizing the main word in your phrase. No more than that. So that's difficulty number 1, too much emphasis. Difficulty number 2 is not enough emphasis, not enough use of intonational stress. Russian speakers in particular, and really I would say most Slavic, most Eastern European languages are guilty of this one. I used to have a student of mine who was a venture capitalist, told me he was afraid of sounding like a gangster when speaking about money to founders of companies. You know, he would invest large amounts of money into companies and he would want to see return on that investment. But when he would talk about it, he would do it in a very low tone like this. And if you say, we are looking to see a 20% return on investment, it's going to come across a little scary sounding to American ears. This is why Russians make such good movie villains. I've said that in the past in this podcast, I think, and I'll say it again in the future. Russians make the best movie villains for American movies. The reason is because they have a natural, intimidating sound in their accent to American ears. Of course, the way that they're speaking just sounds normal. They're expressing emotion in a different way. I don't know which way, so I can't tell you which way. Maybe some Russian speaker wants to message me after and clarify how. But the point is that Russian speakers and people from Eastern Europe use a tone which sounds intimidating and lacking emotion to American ears. So if you're a Russian speaker or someone from Eastern Europe and you want to come across as more open-minded, more interested in people's ideas, you want to come across as friendlier, here's what you got to do. Work on raising your tone for one word of the sentence while keeping the others low to medium pitch. Here's what I'd like you to do right now. Listen closely as I read a few short phrases, first with a low pitch, without emphasis, and then with a sharp rise in my pitch. The blue house. The blue house. That was good. That was good. That sounds possible. That sounds possible. You did great. You did great. Notice how my voice gets this sound again and again and again when I'm adding a little emphasis. What's happening is my voice is rising 2 octaves higher. And then it's going down again, dropping in tone. It's important that you don't only rise your voice up at the ending. Some students I've had in the past have interpreted this to mean that they should go, the blue house, that was good, that's possible. If you do that, you're going to sound a little overexcited. Like it sounds, okay, there's emphasis there, but it sounds really enthusiastic and it's a little bit more than you may want to communicate. What you can do is focus on stretching that vowel out more. and focus on ending your thoughts, your statements, with a falling lower tone. As a matter of fact, repeat that sound right back to me right now. And now repeat. That was good. The blue house. I think you're right. Notice we're keeping a lower tone for the first words, raising it up for the stressed word, and then back down again, Finally, this brings us to the third difficulty that folks face. I find this largely with people coming from all over India. All over India, from north to south. Folks all over India have a habit of using Indian stress with their speech. And the good news is you are making it easy for Americans to identify the most important word that you're saying. That's the good news. It's not a totally bad habit. It's actually a useful habit, and it's something that we can work with here. Because what you've got to do now is take that sound, and we need to isolate it first so that only one word is rising in tone. The other words are a little bit lower, more medium in pitch. It's about controlling the tone. Using what you're doing isn't a bad thing. You've just got to give it a little focused direction. And now I also want to comment that the sound I made like that, I know not all Indian folks speak that way. A lot of people actually have pretty good intonation. I'm just saying, the average person from India that I've come across, which there are many languages throughout India, the average person will apply the patterns of stress from their native language to English. I'm just exaggerating the sound that Americans typically hear. I'm not trying to put you down for your accent, but I do want you to be aware of the fact that you can control that. It's just a matter of small habits that you learn to develop over time. So just as we've been doing for this whole session, let's work on those habits right now. Repeat after me and make sure that your voice is rising up and going down. Is the sound that we want to master here. So, repeat after me. I hope they do. Get back to work. We already tried that. They already ate. Now again, like I said, if you want to maximize your time practicing right now, what you can do is rewind this a little bit, or even listen to this whole episode a second time, and record yourself repeating these words after me. The important thing while you're practicing is that you're not focusing on other sounds, you're not focusing on anything but the intonation. Matching my pitch, stretching your vowel out the same way that I do, and keeping your other words low to medium in pitch. Now, what we've seen here today is kind of like a primer on pitch. It's not the full course. You're not going to use this and then go give a TED Talk and expect that your pitch is going to be perfect and every word is going to be, and that you've already mastered intonation. Not quite, but my goal with this is to help you start to notice intonation. It's like giving you a new pair of glasses, but for your ears. I want you to notice what American English speakers are doing differently from yourself. So if you know my method, then what I would say is dedicate 1 week to listening and shadowing and repeating the exercises of catching American intonation and recording your voice as you repeat the words along. Then listen to that recording and adjust your voice as you need to. If you do that, or some sort of focused task like that, twice a day for 1 week, you will have a firmer understanding of American accent intonation. In the meantime, I'm going to get to wrapping things up. It's about 5:30 p.m., September 14th, 2023, here in Monterrey. We are in a drought. The water is running out. And I need to go pick up a jug of water before the stores close. Have a good one, folks.